Hello everyone. My name is Kaylee. I work for Swindon Youth for Christ, and this is Elevate, where we are lifting our faith and strengthening our lives one week at a time. This week we're diving into the context of the book of Acts so we can see what God was doing then and what he wants us to do about it now. And without further ado, let's get into the video. So jumping straight in, if you're following along with your Elevate notebooks, you'll know that this week the theme is the foundation and expansion of the church. That's because our author, Luke, who wrote the Gospel of Luke, is going through what it looked like when the church first started, first formed, all the way up until when it's fully expanded across the Roman Empire. Now, if you remember anything about Luke from our video about the Gospels of Luke, he was a physician and a really great historian when it came to keeping accurate records. And we see that again in this book. Now, it's a little bit strange because the book's title is The Acts of the Apostles, but it mainly follows the Apostle Paul. And you might be asking yourself, why is that? Well, it's because Luke is a really great historian. And the start of the book, he's using eyewitness accounts to keep track of the things that happened just after the resurrection, during the Pentecost, and during the original beginning of the church, where we are with the other apostles. But then later, we start to see that instead of just talking about others, we're getting these we phrases. And this is showing us that Luke was actually part of the story from that point. And he was joining Paul on Paul's mission. And that's why it feels like we're more following Paul around. It's because Luke was actually there for those bits. And because the focus of the book is, as I said earlier, the expansion of the church, not necessarily what the apostles were up to. And through Paul's 3 missionary journeys, we can see him expanding further and further and sharing more about the gospel, sharing about Holy Spirit and who Jesus is. Now in Acts, something really important happens. In chapter 1, verse 8, Jesus says to his disciples that they will be his witnesses to go into all the world, to Samaria, Jerusalem, and the ends of the earth, to share his gospel and to share who he is. And then in chapter 2, the Holy Spirit comes down and lands on the believers who are gathered together in the upper room and waiting on Jesus. And we see this beautiful and steady expansion of the church, but also a gradual increase of the people who are in the church, the members of the church, the people who are believing and are chasing after him. Now, what's really interesting is before this time, before the book of Acts happens, the way to communicate with the Holy Spirit, the way to communicate with God and to feel his presence was to go into a temple, was to go into a place of worship. There wasn't sitting in your upper room, there wasn't going to church, there wasn't going to youth club and getting to feel the Holy Spirit and experience him there. It was only in the temple. So the Holy Spirit coming down meant that we could have direct relationship with God when we accepted Jesus and welcomed him into our lives. Now, if you don't know what that means, or you want to do that for yourself and you haven't done it yet, I would definitely recommend speak to your youth leader, speak to a minister at your church or an adult that you know who's in the church, and we can help you with that. Come along to a Swindon YFC event, we can talk about it there. But yeah, after Jesus died, we got the Holy Spirit. This is the helper that he's promised us when we're going through the Gospels, and it means that we can have a direct relationship with God. You don't need an intercessor. You don't need a priest or the head of a temple or even your pastor to intercede between you and God or to mediate, to be the go-between, middleman. It's just you and God. The only middleman is Jesus or the Holy Spirit. But more than that, it also means that wherever we go in the world, no matter where we go, we have Jesus with us. We have the Holy Spirit with us. If you want to share the gospel with somebody, you don't need to take them into a temple or into a place of worship for them to experience it for themselves, because they can see it reflected in you and they can experience it for themselves. It means that while we're out and about, we can be talking to Holy Spirit and we can be getting guided by him. That's the beauty of the book of Acts. It shows us that God is not far away and distant, but he's with us in every moment. Thanks for watching, guys. As always, our faith is something to be grown and nurtured until it bears fruit. So let's go into this week and make the word alive again for ourselves. Don't just talk the talk, let's walk the walk and keep elevating our faith together. See you next week.